Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. So today, this video is just a little chat. It's a little chat because I have seen comments in the comment section about this subject. And yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine, a fellow prepper homesteader, and we were talking about this subject. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed. And it's the subject of fear. Fear. That we're terrified. We're terrified of, that's what preppers are, right? Preppers are people that live in fear. We live in fear of what's going on. We live in fear that we're going to all just be consumed in this new world order, or consumed in the apocalypse, or consumed in some SHTF, and we're going to fail. And we live in fear because we're constantly talking about the latest thing that's going on, and what the government is doing, and what the environment is doing, and what the current crop yield is doing, and shipping and logistics and infrastructure, and on and on and on and on. The newest asteroid that's going to strike. We're constantly living in fear. And I want to address that. And I honestly, to be honest with you, I don't really know exactly where this video is going to go. I've got some ideas and some thoughts, but I just thought I would push the record button and just see what falls out of my mouth. And sometimes you never know what's going to happen. Before this friend of mine and I had this talk yesterday, we were just talking about things in general, and this subject came up. I had noticed an increasing amount of comments on certain videos that were either comments that the people themselves were just terrified of what's going on, that there was this overwhelming fear of all of this, this great reset, and all the stuff going on in politics and government, and all this shutdown and this health crisis, and so on and so forth. And then also I get comments that people just they don't like watching this kind of content because it's just too terrifying. It overwhelms them to watch a video where I might talk about the shipping crisis, or all the attacks on infrastructure, or hacking of things, stuff like that, and they just can't bear to watch it because it overwhelms them and it's too terrifying. I want to start off by saying that never at any point in me doing these videos has it ever been the intention to instill fear upon people. I do know that there are certain channels that I come across every once in a while that they do. They kind of hype it up. You need to be afraid. You need to watch this channel. You need to buy this product. It's terrifying out there. We're all gonna die. And that's never ever been anything that I've wanted to do. In fact, I want to do just the opposite of that. These things are obvious. I think it's foolish to live a life with our head stuck in the sand. These things that we talk about on this channel are real. They're really happening. And there's a lot more stuff that happens. I just feel like most of the time I've just just barely scratched the surface on a lot of things. There's stuff just coming out all the time. But I don't talk about it because of fear. We talk about these things so that we're not caught off guard, so that we're not living a life of just, ignoring the problem. And we've stuck our head in the sand, and we're just going to pretend that everything's just going to work out fine. We're going to trust that whoever's in charge of this world, not in a spiritual sense, but all the people that's in charge of things, that they really just have our genuine best interest at heart. And while we may be going through bumps right now, that it'll all work out good in the end for us, because we're just going to, place the responsibility of our lives in their hands and trust that it's going to be right. I think most of you watching know that that's not the truth. That's not going to happen. That's not their intention. And we need, I believe we have a responsibility to ourselves and our families to be aware of what's going on in the world. and to do the things that we need to do to be prepared for that. That's why I say quite often in my videos to get your houses in order, to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually, because we live in a world that is rapidly changing, that is rapidly progressing into a world of Marxism and a feudalism and totalitarian New World Order. We're progressing into a world of technology that's going to monitor and spy and control nearly every aspect of our lives. We are progressing into a world where food and the things that we need to live by aren't going to always be as readily available or as cheap as we've been used to over the last several decades, and many other reasons. Okay, I'm not even getting into the spiritual reasons right now, but we need to be ready. We need to be prepared, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with doing that. In fact, I think there's everything right in doing it. I've used the analogy before many times that self-sufficiency and preparedness, it's really an insurance policy is what it is. It's no different than buying car insurance. You may never use it. You may only ever need it once or twice in your whole lifetime. I'm trying to remember the last time I had a claim on my auto insurance, and I think I was somewhere around 18 to 20 years old. And I'm 43 years old now. And I've had auto insurance that whole time. So I've been just dumping money into something that I have not used. But if I ever needed it, if tomorrow I'm in a car wreck, I hope that it, keep my fingers crossed, that it pays for itself. And it's the same way with prepping and being more self-sufficient. We may never need it, but it's an insurance policy that develops, I believe, good skills. It develops a sense of responsibility, and a sense that the responsibility for our lives is in our own hands. And then if something ever happens, no matter how big it is, that's going to cause us to have a little setback, we'll be prepared for it. And so for those of you that find yourself, watching this channel or others like it, and you want to know about what's going on, and you want to be prepared, and maybe you feel that I'm just not as prepared as this guy, or I'm not as prepared as this other channel, or these people that comment and they talk about how they've been a prepper for decades, and how they have a farm and they have animals, and and they have all these other preps, and me, man, I just got started, and I know that there's a whole lot that I haven't done yet. And is it even worth it? Like, am I just wasting my time trying to be prepared little by little this late in the game when things are so bad already? Maybe I should just, try to tune it out and try to ignore what's going on and just hope for the best. I personally don't feel that that's a good way to go, a good thing to think, and a good attitude to have. Maybe you do live in an apartment, and you say, well, I can't have a garden like you do, and I can't have animals like you do, and I don't have a creek and trees and all this kind of stuff like you do. I'm stuck in an apartment. I have a limited income. I'm either elderly, or maybe I'm disabled, or maybe I'm just a single mom with a bunch of kids, or I'm a family that have a bunch of kids, and we're just struggling. We want to be prepared, but we just can't. Well, I understand that. I've been in those kind of places in my life. And many of the preppers on here, the people that are considered more prepared, more advanced homesteaders, a lot of them's been in those kind of situations in their life too. So, number one, I understand that. But number two, this is important. You can do things to become more prepared. You can, achieve at least some level of independence, regardless of where you're at. Unless, of course, you're in jail, or in prison or something like that. But if you really work at it, there's all kinds of information on how to do container gardening, on your balcony in an apartment. There's ways to do things inside a small space. We don't have a very large house. It's not technically like a tiny home, but it is very small. And we have 4 kids and ourselves. So, we make do. And our ancestors, when they came across this country and they pioneered out of nothing. I mean, they didn't have general stores down the road. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have the supplies. They didn't have the technology. They had nothing. They made their houses out of sod that they dug up. They'd go out and they dug and cut sod, and they'd make a house out of it. They'd heat their home with cow dung and buffalo dung that was dried out. They did with very little, and they survived. Some of them didn't, but enough of them did, obviously, or you and I wouldn't be here in this country, the way things are. So with enough willpower, the mental fortitude, you can achieve a whole lot more than what you believe you can. I believe that's true with everyone, regardless of the situation. I'm not saying that, if you're stuck in an apartment on a limited income, that you can achieve, the ultimate level of independence and self-sufficiency and preparedness and stuff. But you can work towards more than your neighbor and more than the people around you. And also, and this is huge, this is something I haven't talked about maybe in a while, but I have talked about before. Aside from the spiritual aspect, one of the number one things, if not the single number one thing that you can do to increase your level of preparedness, to be more prepared, to be more self-sufficient, is strengthening your mind. Years ago, when I went through my training, there was I had a lieutenant, and he was actually a pretty good guy. But he was amazing in hand-to-hand combat stuff. He had several black belts in different martial arts. This guy was just tough. He was just tough all around. He didn't look it. He looked like a little computer nerd. I mean, he looked like someone, no offense to anyone that's into computers, but you know what I mean. He looked like someone that was sitting in a cubicle their whole life, tapping away on a keyboard. And this guy was a BA. I mean, he really was. And I remember him, and I went through some training with him. He was one of our instructors, and he told us, he said, you know what? You can be the toughest guy, trained in all sorts of hand-to-hand combat martial arts. You can be the best in knife techniques. You can be the best in firearms. You can be the best in all that. He said, you can have all this training. He says, but if you don't have the mindset to survive, he says, you're going to fail. He said, that's the number one thing. He says, is your mindset. He said, there are countless examples of people that don't have the best training, or they don't have all the skills, or they don't have all the tools, and they find themselves in a fight, but because of their mindset to survive, to overcome, to conquer, they were able to succeed against a much stronger adversary because they had the mindset to survive. We can look at modern examples of that in warfare. Look at Vietnam and look at Afghanistan, 2 places that are extremely more powerful, more superior, more technologically advanced, and greater in numbers military, went into a nation of people that, for the most part had very antiquated weapons, little to no training, and sometimes didn't even have modern weapons. I've seen pictures in Afghanistan where people were using black powdered rifles, percussion cap muzzle loading rifles, or World War I and World War II rifles. And we were there for 20 years, and we're still there, and we're just now talking about pulling out, and we're not really that any more successful there now than it was 20 years ago, because the people there, we're not going to break their will, not the way we do things. And I know that's a subject for a whole nother video, but the point that I'm making is that these people obviously have the mindset to conquer, to not be conquered, and to overcome the odds against the U.S. military. Now, bringing that back into a prepping world and a homesteading world and a self-sufficiency world, you can survive. You can overcome odds. And so when you hear a video where it's myself, or you're watching something about the news or some kind of current thing or some conspiracy that's going on, and I'm not talking about conspiracy theory, conspiracy fact, about, whatever. And this fear starts to overcome you because you just think that the world is changing too rapidly, and I'm just not prepared yet, and I don't know that I can get prepared. You need to stop and realize that just the fact that you're aware of it, and just the fact that you have this desire to be prepared, makes you more prepared than the average person already. And every little step of the way that you make yourself more prepared, whether it's physically more prepared through, the acquisition of preps, or physically more prepared by the training of skills, or physically more prepared because of doing things and creating muscle memory of how to survive, how to build things, how to do just things, homesteading things, survival things, different types of training. You are every step of the way becoming more prepared. And regardless of your age, your situation, your financial situation, the location you're at, you certainly can be more prepared in particular locations. Someone that's younger may be able to, have the strength to do things that you can't do, or the endurance to do things that you can't do. But that doesn't mean that you cannot find a level of preparedness. And so that's why I continue making these videos, is I want you folks to be physically prepared, mentally prepared, and spiritually prepared, because the world we're living in is rapidly changing. I get also a lot of people that, send me messages or make a negative comment that, well, you say you're a Christian, you believe in God and all this, and yet, you obviously don't have any faith in him, that you put all your faith in your garden and your animals or your preps or your guns or whatever. No, that's not the case. I believe that in having absolute faith in him, I know how this is all going to play out. I know in the end where I'm going to end up. But I also know that I have a duty to participate in that. I don't just have faith that, well, I'm hungry and I'm just going to pray that God's going to fill my belly. I don't have to get a job so that I can buy food and then bring it home from the grocery store and cook it and put it on a plate. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to have faith that God's just going to put food in my belly. No, we have to do things. Noah, he had faith that God was going to take care of him, but he had to do things along the way. Joseph, he had faith that God was going to take care of him, but he had to do things and store up grain. There's countless stories in the Bible where people, they had to put a little action to their faith. And so whether you're a person that believes in the great book or not, we have to put actions to what we believe in. And if we believe that things are getting bad in this world, if we've been made aware of it, if we're seeing the changes and we're hearing the changes of stuff that's happening, we know that there's a good chance that it could lead us down this road. History repeats itself, and we see that other countries that's done this before, their dollar's hyperinflated, or their economy's crashed, or the government's collapsed, or whatever it is. Then we really have a duty and responsibility to ourselves and to our families to get as prepared as possible. And that is different for everybody. Just because I get on here and I make these videos and you see the land that we have and the animals, don't think for a minute I'm the ultimate prepper. I know people around me, friends around me, that are vastly more prepared. Their homesteads are way better than mine. Like they're on top of it. They've been doing it for longer. They've been on that piece of property for a decade, 2-3 decades, and they got their A game on. And they're ready. I mean, if the world fell apart tomorrow, they could ride it out on their property. Don't think for a moment that's where we're at. It is still a journey right here on this homestead. Our family is still on that journey of preparedness. And I make these videos to share with you and to hopefully encourage you. So at no point think that we are absolutely and ultimately prepared and that we look down upon anyone that isn't. There's no reason to have fear. I mean, there are reasons to have fear. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of reasons to have fear. But the fear is not going to help you. Take that fear, use that energy to motivate you to become more prepared. And so that you're turning that fear into confidence that I'm doing the things that I need to do to get myself more prepared for the changes in this world. And then we are no longer living in fear, but we're being aware of what's going on, and we're living with a calm spirit, because we know that no matter what happens to us, no matter what goes on in this world, we've done what we can to become more prepared. And in the end, we know who's going to win this battle and where we will end up. And so there's not a reason to constantly live in this state of panic and fear. And so I hope that in the videos that I've produced in the past and continue to produce in the future, that that'll help a lot of people. I just hope that it does, and people will see that it's not about being terrified about what's going on. It's about being aware of it, and by being aware of it and taking active steps to become more prepared against what's happening, it's going to improve and increase the odds of our survival of whatever happens. All right, folks, thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.